Yeah, what's up? Sean G. Make sure you follow me in all TikTok, Podcast with Soul, Instagram, the Podcast with Soul, Spotify, the Podcast with Soul, YouTube, the Podcast with Soul. What I'm going to talk about in this video is the anti-puffy ecosystem that was manufactured, nurtured, and grown months before the trial starts in May 2025. The first thing that was done with this ecosystem was that the mainstream media destroyed Puffy's name. They assassinated him in the public perception with mainstream media. That was one prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem. This came in the form of repeated news commentary on mainstream media, coast to coast and worldwide, that Puffy is a monster and you need to hate Puff. To help with that assassination of his character, the mainstream media took a 13-second clip of Puffy assaulting Cassie, which he did, clearly assault, and they looped that 13-second clip over and 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 over again. All the while knowing that clip was back to 2016 in Los Angeles, California, and that the statute of limitations on that video had long expired, that Cassie, with that video, the one who was assaulted, did not call the police, did not go to the hospital, did not file a police report. In their 11-year relationship, never the police called for a domestic violence incident, never hospital visit, nothing, nothing. Not justifying what Puffy, his assault of Cassie, because y'all know I watched my mother be a victim of domestic violence in the 70s growing up as a kid, and I'm not a proponent of domestic violence. That's not my thing. Looping this 13-second clip without full disclosure, that the real video was really 6 minutes and 38 seconds long, right? And that in that 6 minutes and 38 seconds, number one, Cassie stole his phone, right? And they did this to each other throughout the entire relationship. Cassie would steal his phone, look through all of his text messages. Cassie testified on the stand that she was insanely jealous of Kim Porter. She was insanely jealous of Gina. Puffy had 9 or 10 girlfriends, and she was insanely jealous. And Puffy was the same. Puffy he didn't want no niggas around Cassie at all, ever, other than the male escorts when he was present. Cassie stole his phone, right? He comes out, he assaults Cassie. After he assaults her, they sit down right there by the elevator and they conversate. He throws a vase at her. She calls the security guard comes up. They're sitting down and talking, and we don't know what was said, but at the trial, we saw the whole video, which was 6 minutes and 38 seconds long. What they did also fail to disclose was that after Cassie left the Intercontinental Hotel after that assault, she goes to her apartment, and the police come there for some kind of noise incident at another apartment down the hall. They knock on the door. Cassie's friend Kerry is there, her best friend, and the police come in, and the police ask Kerry and Cassie for ID. Kerry gives the cops, the LAPD, her ID. The LAPD badger Cassie to give them her ID. Cassie says, I ain't giving you nothing. And then Cassie's best friend is telling Cassie in front of the cops, Cassie, tell him what he did to you. Tell him what happened. And the cops are asking Cassie, what happened? What? And she says, I'm not saying nothing. So she doesn't say anything. All the while, Puffy is texting her, baby, please, baby, please, I love you. Baby, please, I'm sorry, baby, please. A little while after that, Cassie jumps in a car and goes to Puffy's house and meets with Puffy at his house. This is the same night, within hours of the assault. And later on that night, this is either March the 5th or March the 6th, 2016. Later on that night, Cassie and Puffy go to her movie premiere together. The Southern District of New York, the prosecution at the trial. What the hell is this sticking? At the trial, they show all of these pictures of Cassie with a busted lip and this and that and the other thing. And this is what happened after the Intercontinental incident. She had a black eye, busted lip. But the paparazzi in the media takes pictures of Cassie and Puffy at her movie premiere, and no busted eye, no busted lip, no black eye, no marks on her whatsoever. That was the other prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem. They also framed it that when Puffy is dragging her back, they frame it as if he's forcibly dragging her back to finish a freak off with Jules Theodore, which was one of the male escorts that Cassie carried on a relationship with, got together with when Puff wasn't around, and would fuck him and she would see him on her own, under her own volition. She testified to this herself on the stand when Puff wasn't around. She said they had a special friendship. And she did this with several of the male escorts. Maintained text messaging contact, phone contact, when they were doing freak-offs and when they weren't doing freak-offs. But they never show proof or evidence that actually Jules Theodore was actually in the hotel room at the Intercontinental Hotel. Video or pictures of anything, he didn't come to testify that he was actually there. But they framed it, they needed to show force, right, and violence. They got the violence and they needed to show force for the SEX trafficking and the racketeering conspiracy. And him dragging her was the force, but them saying that a freak off was going on was never proven and never shown, right? But they took a shot, and it was a very good shot because you used that to frame it. That was the second part of the anti-Puffy ecosystem. The third part of the anti-Puffy ecosystem was to destroy him in the social media world, right? Which was being done and has been being done for how many years. With memes and, these rumors that he dealt with minors and that he was a homosexual, all in the character assassination. The fourth part of the ecosystem was to arrest him when Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos, his attorneys, reached out to Maureen Comey in the Southern District of New York and the United States Attorney and told them Puffy he's on his way to New York to turn himself in. He's going to turn himself in. Puffy flies from Miami to New York to turn himself in on the Tuesday. They don't let him wait until Tuesday to turn himself in. They arrest him Monday and film it to support the denial of bail. Because if he voluntarily surrenders, which he was intending to do, then he's no flight risk. He surrendered voluntarily. You got to give the guy bail. But if we can arrest him prior to, now we can make it seem like, oh, the nigga's flight risk. He got a plane, passport, he got all his money. He gonna dip. That was the other anti-Puffy ecosystem. The search and live broadcast of the search and seizures of his house in Miami and his house in LA, live on TV, is another character assassination move, just putting lighter fluid on the grill and throwing more matches on the fire. The anti-Puffy ecosystem. Another prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem was the prosecution and the prosecutorial misconduct that went on prior to the trial when Alexander Shapiro and Puffy's lawyers had to tell the judge to stop the Southern District of New York, the prosecutors, from leaking false information to the press, to the mainstream media, who was another prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem. Stop leaking false information to the press to poison and taint the jury pool so that so he couldn't get a fair trial. So no matter what jurors they picked, they all were tainted with this perception and image of Puff. This is all a part of the ecosystem. The judge finally puts a gag order on them and tells them to stop, the prosecution to stop doing that. They keep doing it. Even after the judge orders it, they keep doing it, but eventually they stop. Another prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem was to go into his cell in MDC Brooklyn and steal his notes of his meetings with his attorneys about their defense strategy, their opening argument, and send all that stuff to the prosecution before the trial even starts. Another prong of the anti-Puffy ecosystem was to have witnesses come and testify for the prosecution and lie and commit perjury on the stand, but be shielded from prosecution from perjury because they had immunity agreements with the prosecutors that expressly stated that the only way they could be charged with perjury was if they lied. And who gets to decide whether they lied or not was the prosecution. This was all came out. And these people got on the stand and they lied. This is another prong to the anti-Puffy ecosystem. Another prong was when the trial started, was the social media component of just the anti-Puff. And I think this was done to taint the jury so Puff couldn't get a free trial. And all of this was done, right? And when we look back at this case now, I didn't acquit Puff. You didn't acquit Puff. The Southern District of New York didn't acquit Puff. Puffy's lawyers didn't acquit Puff. The judge did not acquit Puff. The president did not acquit Puff. Nobody on the planet acquitted Puffy of those charges but the 12 New Yorkers that were on the jury. They rejected the government's theory. They rejected the government's argument. And that's how Puffy is free. Everybody was rooting against Puff. I think my role that I played, I know my role that I played. I changed that motherfucking trial. I changed that motherfucking perception. And I don't know Puff. I never met Puff. But I just, and like I told y'all, I believed everything. I was a victim and a believer of the anti-Puffy ecosystem. I believed everything. Thought he was gay. I thought he messed with minors. I thought everything they said, that he put drugs in the baby oil, and I thought everything. And I went to the trial to hear it because I was going to put it on my YouTube channel and go viral with the news confirming everything that I had heard for the last 3 to 6 years about this man. And the more that I went to the trial, and I went every day, I was in the 24th floor overflow, none of the evidence came out. None of the evidence, nothing came out on the record that supported what the anti-Puffy ecosystem said really happened or who this man was. And I rehabilitated Puffy's name, and if it had been blackened in any way, I would like to say that I did some justice. Maybe not fully rehabilitated, because some of y'all just don't like the man anyway, whatever reason, and that's fine. You don't have to. And because you're emotionally, you hate the man because you're influenced by the anti-Puffy ecosystem, you're not open to hearing anything factual. You are into the sensational nonsense. And I've even heard people say, well, the feds didn't bring everything out because it was other people that would have got in trouble. That's fucking insane, man. The feds don't get down like that. They are not going to hold nothing back in the most high-profile trial in New York City trying to bring. If they had anything, they would have brought it. But they did not have it. It did not exist. And listen to what I'm finna tell y'all when we look at this. When we look back at this, at what just happened, Sean Combs, Puffy, was innocent of everything they said. Innocent. The jury acquitted him of the 2 charges, the 3 of them, the 2 SEX trafficking and the 1 RICO. And they convicted him on the Mann Act, which never should have been brought in the first place. We've gone over this. The Department of Justice put out a memo 75 years ago, before I was born, before you was born, that said that the feds, the government, the Washington, D.C., the Department of Justice, don't bring no Mann Act cases in here. We ain't charging nobody with no Mann Act unless they was making money from the prostitution. Puffy wasn't making no money. He didn't make not 1 nickel off the prostitution. If you want to consider the male escorts as prostitutes, he did not have sex with the male escorts. He was knocking down his honeys. That's his thing. We all have different sexual innuendos or sexual fantasies or quirks or eccentricities or whatever you want to call it. You understand? That's on you. But nothing, his conduct did not fit the definition of the Mann Act. But being that they lost the 2 charges that they wanted because they wanted to send him to prison for life, they offered him a 30-year plea deal. At the age of 55 would have been effectively a life sentence. The nigga went to trial. The nigga took his money that he made, and this is why I respect him. The Puffy said, man, fuck it, let's go. I'm not taking no 30 years. Man, let's go. And he hired 10 or 11 lawyers to their 6 assistant U.S. attorneys, and he was his 12th lawyer. He was actively involved. I saw him every day. He was sitting in the middle of all the lawyers, passing notes to Mark Agnifilo, passing notes. Tenny, come in. Brian Steele, come in. Nicole, come in. Xavier, come in. Moving and shaking. And he won. To me, and I look at this, and I've talked to other niggas that done did fair time, and for us, we look at things differently than the normal John Q public that does not have a criminal history, that's never been to prison, especially not in the federal system. We know that this was a flat out win for Puff. And, you know, for me personally, my personal opinion, you know, as a foundational Black American man who has been racially profiled by the police, harassed by the cops. When I went to prison, I did what I did wrong. I did it. I was breaking the law, and I knew I was breaking the law while I was breaking the law. So I should have went to jail. But the stories I heard in prison of foundational Black American men getting 240-month sentences for a first offense, 360-month sentences for a non-violent drug offense with crack cocaine, 30 years. My bunkie got 20 years for $3,800 worth of crack. You know, I heard these stories over and over. So for us that know the ugly side of the federal criminal justice system, you know, speaking for me, I was happy that he beat it, and I'm glad that he beat it, and I'm proud of him. You know, he's celebrated. Here was, you know, a foundational Black American man took the government to trial, went to war with him against all odds, and they cheated every day, and he still beat them. That he was able, his genius, number one, to generate the kind of net worth that he generated, $700-800 billion. It takes a genius to do that and a tremendous work ethic. And then to take that money and use it to save his family, his daughters and his sons and his mother, and prevail is fucking phenomenal to me. And it's a testament that you gotta go to length. You gotta go. And even the people that hate him, even the people that wanted to see him get convicted, the people that can't stand him, even the prosecutors, even the judge, when they're in their quiet moments, in the recesses of their mind, when they're sitting at the traffic light waiting on the light to turn green, and they look at that shit, they say, this nigga, this is a bad motherfucker. And his legacy, to me, is even more cemented now from a hip-hop perspective, right? Because, hip-hop culture runs the world. It's the dominant trend-setting culture. It's a rebellious culture. And here you have the ultimate rebellion against the ultimate boogeyman. And the little guy wins. And nothing of what they said about him comes out on the record. And the Southern District of New York, the prosecution, the United States government gets exposed for prosecutorial misconduct. And this is around the planet. It's just an amazing story. So I wanted to do this video. I'm finna go get me something to eat. Holler at y'all later. Peace.